How does a drug bust in California lead to civil war? So, there's a giant story breaking out of California tonight. California drug trafficking suspects released from jail days after being busted with 150,000 fentanyl pills. Well, oh my, that sounds awful. Let's take a little quick look into this and see what we can see. So, this comes from the Post Millennial, always doing fantastic work. The state of California has released two alleged high-profile drug traffickers just days after they were caught with 150,000 fentanyl pills. A couple of key words in that first sentence. California, high-profile, and 150,000 fentanyl pills. We'll get to all of those points in a minute. Suspects Jose Zendejas, 25, and Benito Madrigal, 19 years old. 19! He's a child! Were arrested during a traffic stop on Friday after Tulare County Sheriff's deputies found 150,000 fentanyl pills worth an estimated $750,000 in their vehicle, according to the New York Post. Zendejas and Madrigal were booked into Tulare County pretrial facility on charges of possession, transportation, and sales of illegal drugs. However, the two suspects have since been released on their own recognizance after a judge granted them a court order, the outlet reports. That order requires them to appear in court on their own accord. I'm no legal expert. Apparently, I'm not even an expert in speaking. I am no legal expert, but I am pretty sure that means they were released without bail or bond. So they're like, you promised to show up? We sure do. Okay, off you go. Am I incorrect? Okay. So here's a picture of the two fine young gentlemen, upstanding citizens as they are. On Monday, the Tulare County Sheriff's Office slammed the judge in a statement, feeling it necessary to clear up any confusion. All inmates booked into Tulare County jails are sent through what is known as the risk assessment process through the Tulare County Probation Department, the statement said. That risk assessment is then sent to a judge with the court, who then determines whether or not the individual arrested is held on bail or if they were to be released. It continued, although Sheriff Mike Boudreau strongly disagrees with the release of these individuals as a matter of public safety, the court order release must be followed. Okay, let's take this a couple of sections at a time. They were released on their own recognizance because they didn't pose a risk to the public. Okay, these two kids, children, 25, 19s at their ages, have $750,000 worth of illegal drugs. And unless I've forgotten basic news stories in history about fentanyl, apparently one pill can kill you. Overdose. You can overdose on one pill. There's no regulation for this. Sometimes they make them stronger, sometimes they make them weaker. You had a pill last week, it didn't do much, so you took 3 to get your buzz. Now this week the mix is a little stronger, so you take 3, boom, you're dead. We all know how this works. Fentanyl is strong stuff. So the 3 parts of the first sentence that I wanted to talk about. 1, California. California doesn't care to enforce any laws at all. 2, 2 alleged high-profile drug traffickers. These kids have $750,000 worth of drugs. They've got financial backing, cartels, something. This isn't their first rodeo. Or the people they're working for isn't their first rodeo. This is a big, big drug affair, okay? And 150,000 fentanyl pills. 150,000 fentanyl pills could kill 100,000 people. This is serious. California doesn't care. But take this one step further. what does this do to the moralization of the cops? Hey, cops doing hard work, risking their lives. They arrested giant drug traffickers. And the DA turns them loose. These are big time players. They're going to be protected and they're going to be hidden. What does a cop do next time he sees a drug smuggler? Would he want to waste 6 hours of paperwork for a DA that doesn't give a shit? Cops are just like, yeah, I'm not going to waste all my time for this. It's not worth my time. So California lets them go, cops let them go, DAs let them go. California does not care about laws. California wants more drugs on the street. They've literally decriminalized drugs. They've decriminalized theft. They've decriminalized, I'm almost positive this came over the border from Mexico. They've decriminalized that. Now, what's important about this story is, oddly enough, not this story at all. This is a story about civil war. And you're going, wait, what are you talking about? Are you just making stuff up? No, not really. This has to do with laws. This has to do with keeping the peace. It has to do with public order. It has to do with all these things. California has basically told the federal government, go fuck yourself. When it came to making marijuana decriminalized, marijuana is still a federally regulated drug. No, don't get me wrong. I know a lot of people disagree with that, and that's fine. I don't have an opinion on whether or not you should smoke weed. I don't care. I don't care at all. I mean, my personal opinion, if we want to get right down to it, I think you should be able to take whatever drug you want if and only if it doesn't affect other people. You want to drink yourself to be blackout drunk every night? Great. The minute you get behind the wheel and drive a car, not okay. Same thing with weed. You want to smoke weed, just all day and all night, Cheech and Chong style? Cool, no problem. But you can't do that if you're going to drive a school bus tomorrow morning. You see my point? That's kind of where I draw the line. When it affects other people, that's my line. So back to the Civil War. California completely disregarded the federal rules on marijuana, and they got away with it. No one challenged them. And then they completely disregarded the rules on illegal immigration. Their borders, for all intents and purposes, are wide open. And if you somehow make it across the border and evade the 7 ICE agents on the border that day, you go to San Francisco and San Diego and Sacramento and LA, and they'll give you housing, they'll give you education, they'll give you food vouchers, they'll give you a daily cash allowance, blah, blah, blah. So they don't care about the immigration rules of this country. They don't care about the border. They don't care about any of that. They do what they want. And they have sanctuary cities. That's what they're called. Let's see. What else does California do that the federal government doesn't allow? Well, I guess fentanyl. Fentanyl is a controlled substance that's pretty significant. There are, I'm not exactly sure how many overdoses there are on fentanyl every year, but it's more than 100. And they caught, I would call these major drug runners with 150,000 pills and $750,000 worth of fentanyl. They're not recreational users. So they get caught. Well, the federal laws say when you're moving that kind of drugs, you get some serious time. California says, no, we don't care. So I've made a case that California doesn't give a shit about the federal laws. They pick and choose which rules they want to follow, and they don't. This is how the division begins. When one state says, well, I don't want to follow that rule. I don't want to. Now, California is my poster child for this. But Oregon and Washington, the state, not the DC, have kind of done the same thing. Portland, Oregon has Antifa running wild. That whole Chaz Chop thing, they took over a giant section of the city, and no cops, no ambulances, no law, they took it over. They made their own sovereign district. Now, at that time, Trump wanted to send in troops and let's clear this right up. We'll get this fixed, no problem. You can't do this. This is a type of insurrection. And the mayor of the town said, no, this is a summer of love. Everybody remembers that bullshit. Well, multiple people were raped. A couple people were killed. Crime was through the roof. Businesses collapsed. Vandalism, blah, blah, blah. Portland says, no, we don't care what the federal government says. We're going to do whatever we want. And Connecticut has 3 sanctuary cities, and this never hits the news. Hartford, Bridgeport, and New Haven are free range for illegal immigrants. They have housing sections. They have little, Chinatown, places have a little Chinatown where all the Chinese immigrants live and set up shop and have a little community. There are parts of Hartford where, unless you speak Spanish, you are not welcome. And it's incredibly dangerous. Cops don't go there. It's the north end of Hartford. You're never going to see it in stories, but it is brutal. Same thing with Bridgeport. Same thing with New Haven. They have giant billboards when you drive up the highway. They're all in Spanish for miles and miles, saying basically, if you want immigration help, here's where to go. And there are lawyers working pro bono, which means they're being paid by the government, most likely. Obviously, I can't prove that. But I'm getting back to the Civil War thing. When states don't have to follow any federal rules, it means they've kind of split off in one way or another. And now people are getting really mad that Florida has taken this opportunity to do the same thing. Oh, vax mandates? No, thank you. And they just don't enforce them. That's a different way to choose not to follow federal laws. Now, Missouri has launched a very aggressive anti-abortion program where it's basically illegal under any circumstances, except for they have a carve-out for extreme circumstances. But I can tell you, Missouri, they are putting Planned Parenthood and abortion doctors out of business. And the same thing goes with some of the other states that enacted their trigger laws around Roe v. Wade being overturned. Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Texas, things like that. Okay, so these are states that are choosing to go their own way and ignore the federal rules. So what we've got now is 2 separate economies, 2 separate set of rules, and 2 separate ways to follow the law or interpret the law. Well, this is kind of what happened during our original Civil War. It happened to do with the slaves. The slaves escaped and they went up north, and the South said, you have to go fetch our slaves and bring them back. That's our law. And the North said, no. And they're like, but if you're not going to follow the laws, then we're not part of the same agreement anymore. And our treaty and treaty are broken and we're going to war. And they're like, yeah, but you're not getting your slaves back. Oh, by the way, that was the Republicans, in case anyone's paying attention. The Democrats wanted to keep the slaves. I don't know if you're aware of that, but that's ancient history. They've been racist for a very long time. So we're getting to the point where some states don't follow the laws, and other states don't follow other laws. And now we've got AOC, and we've got Elizabeth Warren, and we've got some other numbnuts in Congress saying that the Supreme Court is illegitimate. So now, our president is a pudding head. He's literally... he's ineffective at his job. He doesn't make any sense. He mumbles, he stutters. He's literally a pudding brain. Congress is irrevocably divided. They're never going to get anything accomplished. Nancy Pelosi is basically a... what's the word? Enemies, foreign and domestic. She is an enemy to this country. She goes against everything in the Constitution, blah, blah, blah. Senate split 50-50. They're useless. And now the Supreme Court is being called illegitimate. Okay, all three sections of government are broken and the states don't follow any rules, or they pick and choose which rules they want to follow. How else would you describe this other than a civil war? I mean, they haven't started fighting yet. I mean, the shooting in the streets hasn't happened yet, but clearly it's coming. And it's going to get worse this summer. And by next year, we might not be United States anymore. We might just be states. So let me know what you think. Do you have any comments on this? I'm very curious, but that's how I see it going, and I think we're going to have to pick sides pretty soon. And I know some people are like, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about picking sides because this might get real ugly, and you better know who your friends are.